Imagine the purest, most vulnerable moment of your life, holding your newborn baby for the very first time. Now imagine, in that sacred moment, someone you trust completely tries to snatch that precious child right out of your arms. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Hazel, and if you're new here, grab your coffee, because today we have a story that will make your jaw drop. Our storyteller today, let's call her Wren, had always dreamed of starting her own beautiful family. She married her wonderful husband Silas after a few years of a truly loving and supportive relationship. They shared so many dreams, so much laughter, and an incredible bond that felt unbreakable. The only shadow in their otherwise perfect life was Silas's mother, Elara. Elara had always been a challenging personality, but Wren tried her best to be a respectful and kind daughter-in-law. She'd endured years of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled criticisms about everything from her cooking to her career. Silas often tried to mediate, but Elara had a way of twisting every interaction. She was a master manipulator, always playing the victim even when she was clearly in the wrong. And when Wren and Silas announced they were expecting their first child, Elara's behaviour escalated dramatically. She suddenly became intensely possessive, referring to the baby as, quote, her grandchild exclusively. Elara started demanding to be present at every single prenatal appointment, despite Wren's discomfort. She even went so far as to suggest names for the baby that Wren absolutely detested, insisting they were, quote, family tradition. Wren tried to set boundaries, explaining gently that this was her and Silas's journey together. Elara would then turn on the waterworks, claiming Wren was trying to cut her out of the baby's life entirely. Silas was caught in the middle, trying to support Wren while also managing his mother's emotional outbursts. He loved his mum, but even he was starting to see the increasingly intense nature of her obsession. As Wren's due date approached, Elara's demands became even more outrageous and concerning. She insisted she needed to be in the delivery room, right there by Wren's side for the entire labour. Wren firmly but kindly refused, explaining that she wanted a private, intimate experience with Silas. Elara didn't take no for an answer, repeatedly calling and texting, trying to wear Wren down. Silas eventually had to have a very stern conversation with his mother, drawing a clear line. He told her she would be welcome to visit after the baby was born and settled, but not during delivery. Elara seemed to accept this, but Wren had a nagging feeling that her mother-in-law wouldn't truly abide by it. Wren went into labour a week early, a little earlier than anyone expected, which was a bit of a scramble. The labour was long and challenging, but Silas was an incredible support system throughout the entire ordeal. Finally, after hours of hard work, their beautiful baby, a perfect little girl, entered the world. Wren held her daughter for the first time, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed with pure love. It was the most magical, most profound moment of her entire life, a feeling beyond words. Silas was equally emotional, cradling their daughter with such tenderness and adoration. They spent a precious hour in the delivery room, just the three of them, soaking in every second. Then it was time to move to the recovery room, where Wren could rest and bond with her baby. The hospital staff helped them transition, ensuring Wren and the baby were comfortable. Wren was exhausted but deliriously happy, her new daughter nestled safely in her arms. The nurses checked on them periodically, and Silas went to grab some celebratory snacks. That's when the door to their quiet recovery room suddenly swung open without a knock. Elara stood there, not even bothering to pretend she was just passing by. She walked straight into the room, her eyes fixed solely on the baby, ignoring Wren entirely. Wren felt a cold dread creep into her stomach, a familiar pit of unease. Elara approached the bedside, her expression unreadable, almost predatory in its intensity. "Oh, my sweet little grandchild," Elara cooed, her voice sickly sweet and possessive. Wren, still recovering and vulnerable, instinctively tightened her grip on her daughter. Elara then extended her hands, reaching directly for the baby, her fingers already grasping. Wren's heart pounded, a primal instinct kicking in to protect her newborn. She recoiled, pulling her daughter closer, trying to shield the tiny body. Elara's grip tightened, surprisingly strong, on the baby's blanket. "No!" Wren exclaimed, her voice a raw whisper of shock and terror. It was a silent tug of war, right there in the sterile hospital room. Wren couldn't believe this was happening, her own mother-in-law trying to snatch her baby. She looked wildly around the room, desperate for someone, anyone to help. That's when Gideon, who had stepped out for a moment, walked back in. He froze in the doorway, witnessing the disturbing scene unfolding before him. His wife, pale and exhausted, struggling with his own mother over their child. "Mother, what in the world are you doing?" Gideon's voice was sharp, incredulous. Elara immediately released her grip, her hands flying up in a gesture of innocence. She turned to Gideon, her face morphing into a picture of wounded indignation. "I was just trying to hold my precious grandchild," she whined, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Wren is being hysterical, Gideon, completely overreacting as usual." But Gideon had seen it, blatant attempt of fear in Wren's eyes. He walked quickly to Wren's side, placing a protective arm around her and the baby. "You know that's not what happened, Mother," he stated, his voice firm and unwavering. "Wren just gave birth. She's vulnerable, and you tried to take our daughter." Elara scoffed, pretending to be deeply offended by such an accusation. Oh, Hazel thought, the classic narcissist playbook. Gaslight, deny, and project. Elara was a master manipulator, always twisting the narrative to suit her agenda. She genuinely believed she was the victim here despite her appalling behavior. It's astonishing how some people can completely delude themselves, isn't it? This wasn't just a boundary issue, this was deeply disturbing, a clear threat. A nurse, drawn by the raised voices, poked her head into the room, concern etched on her face. "Is everything all right in here?" she asked, her gaze sweeping over the tense scene. Gideon, still reeling, quickly explained the situation in hushed, urgent tones. The nurse's eyes widened as she listened, her professional demeanour shifting to alarm. She immediately went to the bedside, checking on Wren and the baby with gentle hands. "Mrs. Elara," the nurse said, her voice polite but firm, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Elara's mouth dropped open, utterly shocked that she was being reprimanded. "This is outrageous!" She sputtered, her face turning a blotchy red. "I am the grandmother. I have every right to be here with my family." The nurse simply shook her head. "No, you don't have the right to cause distress to a patient." Gideon stepped forward, taking his mother's arm. "Mother, you need to go. Now action." Elara shot daggers at Wren, a look of pure loathing in her eyes. She finally stormed out of the room, muttering threats under her breath. Wren felt a wave of relief wash over her, followed by a profound sense of exhaustion. Gideon sat beside her, holding her hand, both of them shaken to their core. This wasn't just an overbearing mother-in-law. This was an obsessed, unhinged individual. The level of entitlement and disregard for Wren's well-being was truly chilling. It was clear this incident was just the beginning of Elara's twisted agenda. Wren and Gideon now understood they were dealing with a serious threat to their family. Their peaceful new parent bubble had been shattered by this hospital nightmare. Wren and Gideon sat in stunned silence, their hearts still pounding from the terrifying encounter. They couldn't believe what had just transpired. Their own mother, Elara, had tried to take their baby. "This is beyond anything I ever imagined," Gideon whispered, his face pale with disbelief and anger. Wren held their newborn tightly, a protective instinct surging through her entire being. They knew they had to act, and they had to act decisively to protect their child from Elara. Their first step was to immediately restrict Elara's access to the baby. No more unsupervised visits. Gideon had the difficult conversation with his mother, explaining the new boundaries. Elara feigned outrage, accusing Wren of turning her son against her, playing the ultimate victim. "How could you deny a grandmother her own grandchild?" she wailed dramatically over the phone. Gideon stood firm, reiterating that her behaviour at the hospital was completely unacceptable. Elara did not take the restrictions well. She began a campaign of harassment. She would show up unannounced at their home, banging on the door and demanding to see the baby. Wren and Gideon installed security cameras, feeling constantly on edge in their own house. Elara sent a barrage of texts and emails, some pleading, others filled with thinly veiled threats. "You will regret keeping my grandchild from me," read one particularly unsettling message. The couple realized this was escalating beyond what they could handle on their own. They sought legal counsel, explaining the entire disturbing history with Elara to an attorney. The lawyer listened carefully, nodding grimly at the details of the hospital incident. It was clear Elara's actions constituted a pattern of concerning and intrusive behaviour. They were advised to send a formal cease and desist letter outlining the legal consequences. The letter arrived at Elara's home, a stark, official warning against further contact. This only fueled Elara's delusional narrative that Wren was an evil sorceress. She called Gideon in a rage, screaming about how Wren was destroying their family. "She's trying to alienate me from my only son and my precious grandchild," Elara cried. Gideon, though heartbroken, remained steadfast in his support for Wren and their baby. He explained to his mother that her choices had led to these painful consequences. This created a deep and agonizing rift within their family, something Gideon never wanted. Elara then took her victimhood public, spreading malicious rumors among their extended family. She painted Wren as a controlling, manipulative wife who had poisoned Gideon's mind. Some relatives unfortunately believed Elara's distorted version of events. Wren found herself ostracized by some of Gideon's family, which deeply hurt her. Gideon defended Wren tirelessly, confronting family members who repeated Elara's falsehoods. He emphasized that his mother's behavior was the problem, not Wren's need for protection. The stress of the situation was immense, overshadowing the joy of new parenthood. Wren and Gideon clung to each other, knowing they were a united front against Elara. They tried to create a safe, peaceful bubble for their baby, free from Elara's toxicity. Elara, however, was relentless, continuing to find new ways to insert herself. She would send expensive, unrequested gifts for the baby, often delivered in person. Each gift felt less like generosity and more like a calculated invasion of their boundaries. Wren and Gideon either returned the gifts or donated them, refusing to engage. They focused on their little family, cherishing every moment with their newborn. The joy of their baby's milestones was often tinged with the constant anxiety of Elara. They knew this was a long game, a battle for peace and the safety of their child. Elara's obsession was not fading. It seemed to intensify with every boundary they set. Their hospital nightmare had truly just been the prelude to a much larger conflict. Elara began showing up unannounced, lurking around their home at odd hours. She would send endless, often delusional text messages and emails to Silas. Her messages contained demands to see her grandchild, or thinly veiled threats of what she might do. Calliope and Silas installed security cameras, feeling a constant, chilling watchfulness. They had to explain to friends and family why Elara was no longer welcome in there. The couple tried to reason with her, to establish firm and clear boundaries. They explained that her behaviour was causing distress and was entirely unacceptable. Elara simply dismissed their concerns, claiming they were overreacting or being unfair. She saw herself as the victim, denied access to her precious grandchild. Her delusion deepened, making any rational conversation utterly impossible. When direct access was denied, Elara tried to manipulate others into helping her. She spread false narratives to their mutual acquaintances, painting Calliope as a cruel mother. Some family members, unfortunately, fell for her emotional pleas and sob stories. Calliope and Silas felt increasingly isolated, forced to cut ties with even more people. This wasn't just about their peace, it was about the safety and well-being of their child. The constant vigilance was exhausting, taking a severe toll on their mental health. Calliope found it hard to relax, always checking locks, always looking over her shoulder. Silas struggled to focus at work, his mind consumed with worry for his family. Their dream home had become a fortress, a prison built by Elara's obsession. They knew they couldn't live like this forever. A more decisive action was needed. Then came the incident that solidified their resolve to act, and act decisively. Elara managed to get inside their fenced backyard during the baby's nap time. Calliope discovered her peering into the nursery window, a twisted smile on her face. The sheer audacity, the invasion of their private space, was absolutely terrifying. It was a clear demonstration that Elara would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. That day, Calliope and Silas started documenting every single interaction. Every text, every email, every suspicious sighting was meticulously recorded. They contacted a lawyer specializing in family law and harassment cases. The lawyer advised them on the steps required to obtain a restraining order. This wasn't just about protecting themselves, it was about legal accountability. With a solid case built on months of evidence, they filed the necessary paperwork. Elara was officially served with a temporary restraining order, prohibiting all contact. The shock on her face, the pure outrage, was almost cathartic for Calliope. She tried to fight it, of course, denying everything and playing the victim in court. The evidence was overwhelming, painting a clear picture of her escalating behaviour. The court sided with Calliope and Silas, making the restraining order permanent. Elara was forbidden from coming within a specific distance of their home or workplace. She was also prohibited from contacting them or their child in any way, shape or form. It was a monumental victory, but the emotional scars would linger for a long time. The immediate relief, however, was immense, a heavy weight lifted from their shoulders. This story, while incredibly stressful, highlights the importance of firm boundaries. When someone crosses lines repeatedly, especially with malicious intent, you have to protect yourself. Calliope and Silas showed incredible strength in facing down such a persistent threat. Their journey wasn't about malice, it was about reclaiming their peace and safety. Sometimes, the only way to deal with true obsession is to legally dismantle its power. So, tell me in the comments below, have you ever had to deal with someone who refused to respect your boundaries, no matter what? How did you handle it? What steps did you take to protect your peace and your family? I'm really curious to hear your stories and your advice on these tricky situations. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hazel Tells Stories for more tales of justice and drama. Grab another coffee, because I'll see you all in the next story. Bye for now.